Benji Cole, son of Al Cole from CBS Radio and host of People of Distinction, the talk that gives an in-depth view of some of the most dynamic, intelligent, and successful people on the planet. Run to our website, peopleofdistinction.org for more info, or you can always email me directly at benji@alcoleenterprises.com. And on the line with us today, we have Jim Stavis. We'll be discussing his fantastic book, When Hope Is Your Only Option, One Man's Brave Journey Through Life's Adversity. Available for purchase through Amazon, barnesandnoble.com. But guys, listen, if you want to gather everything that Jim has in store, do yourself a favor and head directly to his personal site. And that's whenhopeisYourOnlyOption.com. There you'll be able to find more information on Jim, more information on this fantastic book, as well as find hyperlinks set up to take you to the purchasing page. So one more time, that's whenhopeisYourOnlyOption.com. Guys, and I will say, Jim was brought to our network, People of Distinction, today by some of the best movers in the business. UR Link Print and Media Publishing. So if you have a book that you'd like moved, make sure you're giving yourself the best gift and you're contacting UR Link. You can find out more information on them at urlinkpublishing.com. So without further ado, let's jump right in. Jim, first and foremost, welcome to People of Distinction, and thank you so much for being a guest. How are you?
Thank you, Benji. I'm doing quite well. Everything's going well for you.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for asking. It is. I am very fortunate, very blessed. I have my health. I have my loved ones around me. I really don't have much to complain. I mean, I could complain, but I shouldn't, right? I mean, I am blessed. And Jim, we're really looking forward to this, man. I know we have so much information to cover, but as I said, I truly mean it. This book is so ideally timed for everything that we're all going through and the adversity that we're facing. So, Jim, I'm not even going to wait any longer, man. Let's jump right in. When Hope Is Your Only Option. Tell us a little bit more about your book.
Well, the book uses my life story as somewhat of a guide in that I was started with juvenile diabetes. I was diagnosed at a very young age. I was a teenager. Oh, wow. And this was back in the early 1970s when diabetes was not as prevalent as it is today. And so I was told at that time by doctors that I would be lucky to live to be 50 years old and that my life would be filled with things such as kidney disease, heart disease, amputations, blindness, just horrible things. And as a young person, I had kind of a choice to make, which was, would I allow this disease to kind of define who I was and what my life was going to be, or would I use it as a motivator to kind of get my life together sooner, knowing that I had a shorter lifespan? And that's really what I did. So I started a business at a very young age, raised a family, and as it turned out, a lot of those things that were projected to happen to me did happen as I got older. And ultimately, what saved me at my 50th birthday was I was having congestive heart failure, kidneys failing, and I went to Cedars-Sinai Hospital in Los Angeles, and they had said to me, well, you need a new heart, you need a new kidney, and best case, a new pancreas, which would cure your diabetes. The problem is we've never done a surgery like that, and I don't think it's ever been done before.
Wow.
So I kind of had my Neil Armstrong moment where I said one small step for man and said to the doctor, well, I'm going to be the first one. And that's how it turned. It became that. I actually made that happen back in 2005 with a triple organ transplant, heart, kidney, and pancreas. So a big part of it had to do with my belief system, my mental state, my perspective, and I was able to kind of overcome some pretty horrific odds. And here I am nearly 17 years later, doing incredibly well, no longer a diabetic, and I wrote a book, and I go around speaking to people about, kind of how do you develop positivity in your life and hope, which is kind of my main theme and my message in terms of how do you get through hard things, hard times, and challenge. And of course, we've all had a lot of challenge in the last couple of years, so it has a tremendous amount of relevance today.
Jim, first and foremost, my goodness, what an incredible story. And that's just the first question, guys. I mean, we have so much more to discuss. The book is littered with these amazing stories. So again, first and foremost, congratulations on the successful procedure. And nothing but continued success for you and, of course, all of your loved ones around you. That is absolutely incredible, so impressive. My goodness, man, what a wonderful way to start. Jim, next question that I want to go into, let's talk about inspiration for a second, okay? Now, I think I can assume what inspired you to put your words on the page. But you know what happens when you assume, Jim, so I'm not going to do that to you. I have you here on the line. I can just come right out and ask. Talk to our listening audience, man. What inspired you to tell your story? Because I'm sure there must have been something that you saw that made you feel, hey, it's not just about me putting my story out there. People are going to be able to pick this up and find, like you were talking about, that hope, that silver lining in such a dark situation. Talk to us a little bit more about that, please.
What I wanted to accomplish in writing a book really wasn't so much that I wanted it to be a memoir or an autobiography of the story. Because, I mean, the story it's a great story. I love to tell the story, and it's inspiring and very educational as it relates to transplant in general. But I really wanted it to be more than a transplant story, because most people will never really encounter a transplant scenario in their life. And I could certainly speak on behalf of the organ donation world, but that really wasn't why I wrote the book. I wrote it to be more of a manual, more of a self-help guide for people that were going through their own problems, because if I could help them in some way, give them perspective, give them kind of a game plan, then it made a lot of sense to me to write a book and make it more instructional, and as well as motivational, inspirational.
Absolutely.
And that's what I did.
Jim, what a perfect segue you've established for us, because initially I wasn't going to go here, but it just doesn't seem right to go anywhere else. Playing off of what you were just saying, right? Having that instruction manual, having that book that could really help other people through their moments of adversity, and getting back to one of the things that you said earlier was a lot of it was based upon your perception. Now, I want to take an opportunity, Jim, and of course, as we said, perfectly timed because of the pandemic and what we've all experienced. But we know that, listen, not everybody's circumstances are the same. So,
correct.
What advice would you be able to give to our listening audience, anybody that finds themselves going through their own dark tunnel but can't really see the light at the end of it? What words of wisdom can you relay?
I mean, the one thing that I've learned is that everyone is different, and everyone handles adversity differently. Mm-hmm. So you can't take a cookie cutter approach to it. And invariably it's how well you do at kind of looking at your life and how your perspective of life. So are you a positive person to begin with, or are you somebody that needs kind of to be able to channel positivity into your life, which could be writing down, like I almost view it as like they have daily gratitude guides, where you look at, what is it in your life that you're happy about, and that makes you feel good, and to focus on the good things in your life rather than focusing on the negative. That's kind of a start. And then another way is being able to look in the mirror and face whatever situation you're going through and be as real about it as you possibly can. Don't live in the state of denial. Face whatever it is that you have to overcome. And then a big thing I think is get help. Go do research, talk to professional, be it therapists, doctors, financial consultants, whatever your problem is. Seeking guidance, I think, is always a good thing in order for you to be able to make the best decision for yourself, whatever it is that you're going through. And then developing a framework which has step-by-step approach to how you're going to get through it. And a big part of that is imagining how you're going to be on the other side so that you have the ability to kind of know where you're going to land. And that's a big part of kind of taking real steps. I like to say that hope, when I talk about hope, it's more of like an action verb. You actually do things, not just sit on the couch and wish for things to happen, but actually take steps.
Absolutely.
To help your situation and kind of take you from where you are to where you need to be.
Again, here on the line with Jim Stavis, we're discussing his wonderful book, When Hope is Your Only Option, One Man's Brave Journey Through Life's Adversity, available for purchase through Amazon, barnesandnoble.com, but directly through his personal site is really where you want to go to gather everything that Jim has in store, and that's whenhopeisyouronlyoption.com. Jim, everything you said made perfect sense. And there was so much value in everything. And one thing that I really want to touch up on, because it's something that I personally can relate to the most, is when you're talking about the power of your mentality. This is something I've mentioned on previous shows. And for me, I feel like it almost began when I was a teenager, when I started to shift and I recognized the importance of positivity in how you view things. Now, I think it began almost as like a survival technique, right? Just going through a dark period. And again, I was a hormonal teenager, so everything looked like it was like it was extreme, right? Because that's what teenagers do. But I recognized, and one of my brothers actually was, he worked on this with me, and we actually became each other's coaches in a way where whenever we were going through anything negative, we instantly would be there to catch each other and, again, just infuse that positivity and try to find the silver lining, because so much of it comes down to perception. And that, as you said, it's not a cookie cutter thing, right? So guys, please understand, I know that I'm oversimplifying here. But what is amazing about it, and something that is relatable, is, guys, how often have we found ourselves in a situation where it seemed very bleak, and then we get through it and we look back and we're like, oh, that actually wasn't as bad as I thought. That actually wasn't as difficult as I thought. And a lot of times, like, our minds can play tricks on us in that way. And what will actually tend to happen, right, is when you're constantly focusing on negative, the negativity in your life is all you can see. That doesn't mean positive things aren't happening.
That's correct.
You're just focusing on the negative. And the same thing could work in reverse. When you start to infuse that positivity, so much more of the positive things that are happening in your life will come to the forefront. And then you can really start to shift and you play that. And again, oversimplifying, for me, it started off, well, I was faking it till I make it. Believe me, I was not as positive as I was making myself out to be. But eventually I got there, and it was such a huge help for starting at that point. And I love the fact that you took it there, Jim, because there's so much relevance to what you are saying. And that's absolutely fantastic. Jim, next question I want to go into. What would you say was a highlight for you in writing this book? Or if not a highlight, maybe something that surprised you that you weren't expecting before you began this journey?
Well, it's kind of interesting how I found my audience, which was, I wrote this newsletter for my company. I have a business. It's a steel distribution company in Southern California named Paragon Steel. And I started it 33 years ago. And I would write a newsletter that would go out every month to about 10,000 customers, prospects, and whatnot. And I would share industry perspectives, business perspectives. And then when I was going through this medical ordeal that I told you about, I started to chronicle my own story. And I was including that in the newsletter. And what surprised me is that really resonated. The story resonated, and my way of looking at it resonated with people. And they started writing back to me with their stories. And I was very surprised that, I had connected with people on a level that I don't think I had ever connected before. I kind of found an audience. And so I realized that I think I've touched on something here, that people want to be able to kind of be uplifted and find a way to kind of get through whatever their hardship might be. And I had kind of found a way to communicate with them. And that really became the foundation of the book. So I kind of felt like I had tapped into something. And then when I wrote the book, I sent out notices to, kind of advertise it to all of our prospects. And I was surprised at the reaction that I got. I mean, a lot of people bought it and commented back to me, because it gave them a lot more than just what I was giving them in the newsletter.
That is beautiful. That is absolutely beautiful. Guys, listen, we talk about this all the time here at People of Distinction. And I know it's such a cliche, right? Because we're always talking about our human family, right? And how powerful we can be when we come together. But what I love what Jim just said in terms of, there was a community waiting to support him through this situation that he wasn't even aware of. And then when he started to put this stuff out there, people are coming out of the woodwork, man. And they're there to help and support. And I think that's what's so beautiful about humanity. I think a lot of times we see the darkness, and rightfully so, right? We definitely don't want to turn a blind eye to certain things. But human beings are so powerful, man. And there's something that's so pure and so beautiful about when we come together and truly support one another, even if it's just lending an ear, right? So that you can vent and you can talk about your situation. There's so much benefit to that. There's so much assistance in that. And I absolutely love it. This is fantastic. Guys, listen, I could talk to Jim for hours, okay? And listen, there's that much content, and I am that fascinated by everything that we're discussing. But I'm not going to do that, okay? I'm going to hold off. And as the last question as we close out of this wonderful interview, Jim, listen, I'd be doing my listening audience a disservice if I didn't ask this next one, okay? Being an artist myself, I love having this platform so I can pay it forward to other artists out there listening in a sense. And in this instance, other writers out there listening in. Now, Jim, whether it was something that you initially embarked upon because you wanted to be an author and you wanted to have this creative background that you were starting into, or you just solely knew that this was that important of a message. Bottom line is, here we are today. The book has been published and you're a bona fide author, man. I'd love to take this opportunity for any new writers listening in, someone just starting out. What would be some advice that you could give them?
Well, I could be honest about it and tell you that it was easy, but it wasn't. In that, I think I thought it was going to be an easier process to just talk about myself than it turned out to be. And I think the other challenge for me was to be able to write down some pretty vulnerable stories that I lived through to get to this point.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to be okay about opening up myself to that. So that was a bit of a challenge for me as well. But at the end, I felt like it was all worth it because of the response that I've gotten from the audience in terms of how it's affected their lives. I mean, that's much more important to me than anything, is how it's impacting others, and for people to write to me and say, I have a diabetic son, and I shared your story with him, and he's so inspired to know that, that everything's going to be okay, and that there is hope in the world, and
mm-hmm.
and I'm glad to be able to provide people kind of sort of inspiration and that sort of hope. It's a powerful message.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, Jim, what I'm picking up from what you're saying is, listen, guys, from a writing standpoint, you write from the heart, right? Write what you know, write what you're passionate about. And at the end of the day, when your heart is in it, you'll never be straight in the wrong direction. And I absolutely love that message. And what a great message for really anything, not even just someone that's a writer. Anything that you're doing, do it with your heart, right? Go with your passion, and you will always end up in the right place. I absolutely love it. And guys, you know what I love even more is we've discussed so much information today, yet we've barely scratched the surface. There's still so much left to be discussed. Listen, you know what you have to do. I'm going to say it for you one more time, even though I know I don't have to. Let's re-impress it again. Here on the line with Jim Stavis, we finished discussing his wonderful book, When Hope Is Your Only Option, available for purchase through Amazon, barnesandnoble.com, but make sure you're heading to his personal site, whenhopeisyouronlyoption.com, to gather the book and to gather more information on everything Jim has going on. You surely will not be disappointed. Guys, let's grow, let's develop, and let's educate ourselves. And it starts with this amazing narrative.